Hello and welcome and a very good morning. This is BQ Prime. I am Agam Vakil and I am going to be taking you through today's trade setup. We start off with the global markets as usual, and for now we're seeing marginal red coming through for major US indices. Pardon me. But that said, on the sidelines, we also have JP Morgan's Marco Kolanovic, who has suggested an expectation of a 20% decline as far as the US markets are concerned. Whether or not that actually comes through is something that we're going to have to wait and watch. But for now, we are certainly seeing marginal weakness, at least on an intraday basis. Yesterday. So the Dow Jones, S&P 500, and the Nasdaq largely flattish, not too much movement coming through. And we have seen a little bit of a pause in the interest rates, specifically the US 10-year yields. That still stands at around 4.7. And there's been a lot of talk around the potential of the yield going higher and perhaps going even above the mark of 5%. These are still fears at the moment, but should they come to fruition, you never know how the US markets are going to react. That said, the other factor which actually plays out in this case is crude. And crude has, in fact, very comfortably moved below the mark of $85 a barrel and $82.88 a barrel to be precise. And that perhaps is a positive because just a few days ago, we were on the verge of seeing crude hit that $100 barrel mark. The fact that it has come off substantially in the past couple of sessions is always going to be taken as a positive. That said, very quickly, taking a look at where the gift Nifty is currently. Not too much in terms of indication. We're still looking at around 19,600, where we are likely to open as far as the Nifty is concerned. We've seen about a short covering in several pockets in the markets yesterday, and it's going to be a wait and watch whether or not we do see any recovery. But we're going to be holding out for the RBI's monetary policy and the rate decision. The expectation is no change. The expectation is for the MPC to hold rates at around 6.5, and we're going to have to see how the commentary comes through, and markets perhaps will react to what the RBI governor has to say with respect to the outlook for the economy, inflation, as well as perhaps interest rates themselves. Now, moving on, as far as your futures and options space goes and the kind of implications that's showing us, the key benchmarks did bounce back. In fact, some might argue that they have made a very, very near-term bottom that was day before. And since then, we have seen some strength come through. The Nifty Futures have seen fresh longs building in. Then the Bank Nifty Futures have also seen shorts covered. So as far as your levels go, we're keeping an eye on the futures. Of course, we did see about a 6.3% increase in OI towards longs. And as I was suggesting, an unwinding of 4.5% in OI as far as the Bank Nifty Futures go. It's going to be 19,300, 19,350, which perhaps could be a near-term support because that's where we saw the markets make a low on an intraday basis on the day before and then bounce back since. Based on that, at the moment, we're looking at a 100-point range, but this is naturally going to change. It's too narrow for now, based on max OI, which is at the 19,600 call and the 19,500 put. A lot of activity around the 19,400 put as well, a lot of additions there. But as I suggested, it is the 19,350, 19,300 mark, which is going to be crucial as far as the Nifty goes. Moving on to the Bank Nifty, again, not too much to keep an eye on except for the 44,000 mark on the lower end. That, again, becomes crucial. And on the higher end, we're seeing a little more traction building on the higher side, around 44,400, and the option strikes there around. So that's as far as your overall markets go. Of course, today is a Friday, and all eyes will be on the monetary policy, and it's a question to be asked as to where markets will head from here on. I reckon a lot of positions will be built after the RBI issues its verdict on interest rates. Let's shift focus to stocks then. And in today's day of trade, starting off right at the top, we have Tata Motors. Good news coming in, I reckon, because we have 21% growth in its retail sales for the quarter gone by, and wholesales grew a whopping 29% on a year-on-year basis. Yes, JLR is working on a low base, but these numbers will certainly be taken very positively as far as investors go because they've all been waiting for that. And the other key element here is that the company expects to be free cash flow positive with about 300 million pounds in the second quarter of FY24. I'm definitely expecting a positive reaction for Tata Motors based on these updates coming through. So keep an eye on that one. Moving on to Bajaj Finance, the company said that it will raise an aggregate of about 10,000 crores through a combination of preferential shares and qualified institutional placement. So the board has approved about 8,800 crores worth through QIP and another balance 1,200 crores via preferential issue of warrants. Again, this is a relatively large sum. So Bajaj Finance will also be in focus. Next up, we have Grasim Consumers, and that's where we've had your quarterly updates coming through. Not looking really great out here, because while the company does suggest a double-digit growth in organic sales for the September quarter, and this is despite facing challenges in the macroeconomic environment, the company's consolidated sales grew in low single digits. And this is not unlike what we saw for Marico, which came through yesterday. So it's not been. It seems like it's not turning out to be a great quarter for FMCG. I reckon the investors are going to have to hold their breath for perhaps better times over the next few quarters. We move on to Adani Wilmar, and while the volumes here look really, really good, the standalone sales, do not. So let me explain that. So while we have 18% growth in food and FMCG and industry essentials growing at around 25%, edible oil, that's the majority of the business, grows at 5%. But standalone sales have declined by around 13%. This is because of aggressive price cuts taken by the company, and that's potentially the reason why we are looking at standalone sales seeing a decline. But before I move on, a standard disclaimer, because we've addressed Adani Wilmar. AMG Media Networks currently owns 49% stake in Quinton Million Business Media and the owner of BQ Prime brand. And AMNL has entered into an MOU to acquire the balance 51% stake in QMBL. Post-acquisition, QMBL will become a wholly owned subsidiary of AMNL. We move on to Manoram Finance, which once again could see positive traction, because the company's unit, Asirvad Microfinance, has filed a draft red herring prospectus with the SEBI for a fresh issue of shares amounting to 1,500 crores. So they're going to look to raise 1,500 crores here. And the company plans to raise about 300 crores in the pre-IPO round, which will also perhaps make the fresh issue come to a reduction, should that go through. So keep an eye on that one. Lakshmi Organics has also approved a QIP with a floor price of around 283 rupees per share, and that will also be in focus. And finally, we have Lemon Tree, perhaps path-breaking for not just Lemon Tree, but also the industry as a whole, because the company has opened a 669-room hotel in Mumbai. This is India's largest by number of rooms, and this is under Aurika Hotels and Resorts brand. So watch out for that. The question really is that, can there be enough takers for that 669-room hotel? It is fairly large, and it's certainly a very ambitious project. But on that note, Lemon Tree will certainly be in focus today. That's as far as stocks are concerned, and also a roundup of all that we can keep an eye on. But before we conclude, let me also take you through all that is lined up on BQ Prime today. So starting off at 9:25, we will be speaking with Dhananjay Sinha, who is the head of research and strategy at Systematics Group. An important markets conversation there. We will also speak with Raja Venkatraman. He's the co-founder of NeoTrader, and that's at around 10:45 for the F&O show. Moving on, in terms of stocks that we need to watch out for, we have Navneet Education and Paras Defense in focus. We will be taking up the latest updates with both these companies, with Sunil Gala of Navneet Education and Amit Mahajan of Paras Defense and Space Technologies. And at 11:30, we have Ask BQ. That's where we speak with Ashish Maheshwari and Aditya Agarwal, who solve our viewer queries. And of course, it is a big day when it comes to RBI's monetary policy. So at 1 p.m., we will have Tanvi Gupta Jain of UBS, Dhaval Dalal of Edelweiss MF, as well as Jaideep Iyer who is the head of strategy at RBL Bank, and they will take us through the outcome of the RBI's monetary policy. So watch out for that. And of course, that said, the RBI will announce monetary policy today, so you can watch all the action on BQ Prime.
The RBI Monetary Policy Committee has much to consider. Volatile crude oil prices and concerns about the spatial distribution of the monsoon. Will these have a bearing on the RBI's growth and inflation projections? And more importantly, will the status quo on rates be maintained? For all the news and analysis, tune in to the live coverage on BQ Prime.